Hi, I'm Nikki, the Obsessive Bookseller. Welcome to my channel. Today I'd like to review Sweep of the Heart by Ilona Andrews. It's book 5 in the Innkeeper series. Of all the Ilona Andrews works, this series falls right about in the middle for me. It's one that I really enjoy, but it's not an all-time favorite like Kate Daniels. That said, though, the format is different. So this is a web serial that they eventually publish into books once they have enough content. But I really like the premise here. The inn is kind of a hub to multi-dimensions, and it's kind of a crossroads where all sorts of different alien species come to stay, and it's kind of hidden from the regular world. And this inn is alive and tied to the innkeeper, who is our main character. And so I think the creature creation and the inclusion of different species was definitely my favorite part of this book. The premise is this event that they're hosting, kind of a royalty matchmaking thing. So there's an element of competition, but there's all sorts of different alien species, and seeing them deal with the dynamics of all of those creatures and like having to adjust the inn to accommodate their various biological needs. Super fun. I love stuff like that. It's a type of world building I usually have to go to a science fiction book to get. And actually this is a really good combination of fantasy, science fiction, and urban fantasy, but not in a way that feels hodgepodgey. Like it all kind of makes sense. Granted, it had been a while since I had read the 4th book, and so I didn't really have any momentum going into this one. I picked it up pretty fresh and couldn't remember a lot of the side characters. It was about halfway through the book before I really started to remember who they were and what their significance was to the story as a whole. There were still a few I couldn't remember, but nobody I don't think super important. Now, because of that, it did take a while for me to get invested into the story, but once I was, I tell you what, I was super on board. I love the element of competition in this one. It was really fun to see the dynamics. It was fun to see the main characters handle everything. Not really much of a love story in this one, which is great. It's per Ilona Andrews. There is a love story component in most of their series, but that is not the focus of the series. It's more of this like established companionship that gives them the strength to face all of the obstacles together, that kind of thing, like a deep bond between characters as opposed to a love story. Very much prefer that format. So this was a fun little jaunt, kind of a tangent story, but it's a web serial, so everything is kind of tangent-y. But what I do love is that the resolution to the whole thing was a couple of bits of information that we've been waiting for the entire series. Like, there's this overarch mystery, something that's followed through each of the books, and we're getting closer and closer to figuring out what really happened, and I'm loving that. I'm loving each one, how each one gives a progression to that overall plot. It makes me think, dang, I need to go sign up for the newsletter and figure out what happens next, like sooner than waiting for the book to be published. See, I didn't even realize this one was coming out, but these are such auto by authors for me that I didn't hesitate. I just dropped everything and picked it up and listened to it. And even cooler, there's some crossover in this series from her Edge series. And so if you really want the full experience, read that one first. Although, of all the things, that one's my least favorite, but it's Ilona Andrews. It's like, oh, well, even my least favorite is still a solid 3-star series. So I'm coming in at a 4 out of 5 star on this one, and yeah, can't wait to read the next one. I want to know what happens. Let's talk about other books you might like. I must be on a personal mission to get everybody to read Heartstrikers because I have mentioned it so often lately, but I keep reading books that are comparable to this one, only I end up liking this one better. Now, in this case, the reason I'm recommending it is because the inn is a place that's alive. Like, you really feel the essence of the place. It interacts with the story. And the DFZ in this book is very similar. So when the location plays a role in the story, it's always a lot of fun. And that's why I'm recommending too, because if you like the vibes in this series, you'll like the vibes in that one. I'm going to push Hidden Legacy by Ilona Andrews, because if you're going to try anything from them, Hidden Legacy is probably the easiest sell from the beginning if you ignore the covers. Kate Daniels grew into my favorite urban fantasy I've ever read. I love it so much, but I almost DNF'd the first book. The first book in the Hidden Legacy series is so much easier to get enmeshed with and to start loving the characters right away, enjoying the story. The magic systems in here are to die for. They are so good and so much fun. Basically, I feel like a kid in a candy shop whenever I get to pick up one of these books. It does not have a strong romance component compared to other urban fantasies that I've read. Yes, there is still one in there, and it's probably heavier in the first book, but then after that, like, we're talking about house dynamics and politics and battle scenes and just so many cool things. So do yourself a favor and ignore the covers and pick that one up. And then let me know if you did, because I want to know if someone is actually ever going to read it because I'm endorsing it. I'm recommending Every Heart a Doorway by Sheena Maguire, book 1 in the Wayward Children series. Similar is there's like a central hub with a lot of crossroads. People get to go through doors, children go through doors and explore these other worlds, and it's very dark. It's much darker than this series, so if you liked Innkeeper but want something a little more gritty, like Wayward is your series. But what I love is the element of travel and experiencing new places. This one has more aliens, Wayward has more supernatural. Grim Space by Anna Guire. Creature creation and awesome dynamics between characters and human and non-human character relationships are always superb in this series, and I feel like that's what Ilona Andrews also does well. So if you like the vibe of the stories, the lightheartedness, the fun, this is a great pick. This is the kind of sci-fi stuff that I really love. Like, I love the space opera-y things with great character focus. I do like the harder sci-fi stuff also, but this is like the stuff that really makes me tick. Oh, I could hear all the hard sci-fi people unsubscribing. Come back! Search Image by Julie Ternita. Dynamics between the characters, cool creature creation, and that fun situational humor. All of that stuff is present, and the setting for this story and the mystery element to it and the fun humor, all of it reminds me of the Innkeeper series. Now, this is a much later continuation from her Beholder's Eye trilogy with Essen. This is years later, so if you pick up this book without reading that trilogy, you're gonna spoil that whole trilogy. So I don't know, maybe go back and read that one first, but I love this one. So if you like Innkeeper and want to eventually read more stuff like that, read that first trilogy, which does not have a lot of similarities, but then really appreciate the dynamics here. Basically, the characters are running a library of information, and they trade in information. So when aliens bring them new information to add to the library or artifacts or whatever, then they are able to access the library. So you have to add to the collection before you're able to reap the benefits of it. It's such a cool idea. And that's just the periphery stuff. You've got a cool mystery going on. I love the main alien, Essen. Blue blob. So cool. That's a good pick as well, if you're in it for the long haul. And that's the lineup. Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to take a minute to thank my patrons. Thank you so much for supporting everything I'm doing. You guys mean the world to me. I'm just having so much fun reading because of you these days. So thank you, and I hope to catch you next time. Bye.